Booktube, it's Eleanor here, and today I'm going to be doing my What I Read and What I'm Going to Read video. This week was a good week. I read 4 books, 2 of which I'm going to speak to you about in a little bit more detail than the other 2 because the other 2 I have been doing review videos for. So the first book I read this week was Of Shadow and Stone by Michelle Muto. I have done a review video of this which will be up in the next couple of weeks, so if you want to know more about this, check that out. In brief, this is a paranormal romance book which follows a Hollywood actress called Kate, and she finds out that she is sort of a guardian to gargoyles. It's quite a dark paranormal romance. It was okay, probably not my favourite read paranormal romance wise, and I gave this one 3 stars. The next book I read was part of the Booktube Reading Buddies Fantasy February, and that was The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This is really probably my first foray into adult fantasy. I've read some YA fantasy and I have read, Brandon Sanderson's books, but this is my first sort of look into sort of a bit more adult fantasy, and I enjoyed it. I did. I was a little bit nervous going in that I was going to find it quite heavy, too difficult for me. There might have been a lot too much world building, and I might have found it, a little bit too much because I'm used to sort of short, fast-paced, plot-driven books. However, I did enjoy this book. It's a story of a world which is much like medieval England, but with a little bit of a magic system in there. We follow Fitz, who is the king's, is one of the princes or the king-in-waiting's bastard son, and we follow him as he is given the chance to become something at the castle, and his sort of training to be an assassin. The world building was really good. I did find in parts that I found this book a little bit slow and there wasn't enough going on to sort of pull me in as much, which I found quite disappointing. I am going to carry on with this series. I want to give it a good shot because I do hear such good things, and from people on Booktube that, generally I sort of like a lot of similar books to, and that I really respect their reviews and their ratings. So I'm going to give this one a fair shot, and I'm going to try the next, the 2 and finish the trilogy up because it had enough interest for me for that. But at the moment it's still a little bit slow, and I'm hoping maybe it'll pick up its pace in the next 2 books. So for this book I gave it 3 stars. The next book I read was a bit of a disappointment for me, unfortunately, and that was Torn by Kat Clark. I'd heard a few things on Booktube about this book and thought I'd give it a go. It's sort of a contemporary type mystery YA story, I suppose. It's about a group of girls in a girls' school that go on a outward bound trip holiday to Scotland. It's based in the UK, and our main character at the beginning, we find out that one of the girls, the popular Queen Bee mean girl, is dead and died on this trip, and somehow we know that her and the rest of the people that were in the cabin are involved or know more than they're letting on, and the story's just about that. Unfortunately, I just found it all a little bit cliche, and I didn't like any of the characters. I didn't like the plot and the way the plot went. I didn't really enjoy any of the twists. It just fell a bit flat for me, and unfortunately I only gave this one 1 star. So that's my first 1 star in a long time because, it was such a short book and it was, easy to read. I did finish it because generally I would have DNF'd a book if it was going to be a 1 star, but I finished it because it wasn't that far, wasn't that hard to read, and I didn't have that much, page wise, and I thought, oh, I'll just finish it. But yeah, unfortunately a disappointing one for me and only 1 star. So next, I have literally just finished Fire and Flood by Victoria Scott, but I'm not going to tell you my final rating because my final video for the Dear Book Buddy, what I'm doing with Sam from Cold Tea and Crumbs, will be up tomorrow. So if you want to find out my rating a bit more about that, then check out that. I've really loved doing this with Sam. It's been a really good read along, and I'm sure most people on Booktube have probably read this already, but we've enjoyed doing it, and I've enjoyed making the videos and the video responses with her, and it's just been a really good fun thing to do. So I definitely recommend reading and buddy reading with people. It just makes that book an added experience to it. So yeah, I've loved that. And if you want to find out my ratings and a bit more, then as I say, check out those videos. And then the book that I'm currently reading and struggling to put down, so you're lucky I made a video this week because I really didn't want to stop reading it, is courtesy of Rachel at Shades of Orange. And that is my booktuber recommend pick for this month, A House in the Sky by Amanda Lindholt and Sarah Corbett. This story so far has been really surprising. I'm not going to say too much about it because I'll include it in my wrap up for next week, but so far I'm really enjoying this, and I'm so pleased that it was recommended to me because it wouldn't have been one I'd pick up otherwise, and I get the feeling that this is going to be one that I'm going to recommend to everybody after this, so watch this space. So that's what I've read and what I'm currently reading. What I'm looking at to read next week is probably some more of the books on my fantasy list for BookTube reading buddies. I've got The Magicians by Lev Grossman, The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making by Catherine Valente. I've got The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and I've also got my diversity pick, which is Cold Courage, I believe, and it's a bit of a crime thriller by the sounds of it, so I want to get to that at some point. And then I obviously have my stack of ridiculous amount of library books, so I'm dipping in and out of those depending on what I feel like. I've decided that obviously I set my TBR up, but I think for me I'm more of a feel as you go reader, so I don't want to be forced to read something, so it's nice to have those library books there because then I can sort of dip in and out and swap and change, and those sort of act as really nice fillers for what I want to read next from my TBR, so I'm really enjoying doing that. So anyway, what are you reading? What are you looking at reading next week? As always, let me know in the comments, let's chat, and I look forward to speaking to you all soon. Okay, bye for now, BookTube.